This is the Epic Experiment Podcast. It's episode 162. I'm your host, Bruce.
Hey, and I'm Pete, and we're glad to be back. We're going to be talking all things Magic the Gathering, and if you like what you're hearing, our content is on the Lotus Council website, thelotuscouncil.com, and circulating on various Discord servers. Bruce, how do you get a hold of us?
If you want to get a hold of us, you can look down in our show notes down below. All the social media contacts are there, and we'd love to hear from you guys out there in the internet.
So, Bruce, we're doing one of our favorite segments. We're doing Garbage or Great this week again. What do you have for us today?
Oh, goody. All right. Audience, this is a card I got in a pack recently. It was a little LCI, a little Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It's called Permission Denied. And this is one of the ones, the special Jurassic Park inspired cards. And so it's a white and a blue, for instance. It's counter target non-creature spell. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Pretty simple text, but the ramifications there, Pete, I think are pretty significant. And I think this card is surprisingly powerful, and I hate it. I hate this card. But not because it's garbage. I hate it because I think it's too good, and
I think it's garbage.
You think it's garbage?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me why you think this is garbage. Because go for it. I'm interested.
I think it's a chase rare, to be honest. I don't think it's deserving of the $7 price range. Okay.
Okay.
So this is why I think of it this way. Dobbin's Veto is better because it can't be countered. Mm-hmm. So, like, say you play this on the stack, right? You try to counter a spell. If they counter that, you're done. Your stack interaction is over with. Or if they play a storm deck and they copy a bunch of spells of like 5 times, you counter one, but if the other ones are on the stack and you can't counter all of them, then you also don't solve the problem. So, in my opinion, yes, in certain situations, you're going to 2-for-1 somebody with this card because they're going to try to play something crazy, and then they're like an Izzet deck or something, or they're a control deck, and they're trying to play a bunch of card draw spells on their turn or on someone else's turn, and you stop them, and you stop the other person from ramping or something. But I don't think this card, I think it's good for CDH, but in terms of casual play, and I want to be very clear about this, I don't think this card it fits well. I think it's one of those cards that you would cut pretty quickly because you could play a 1-mana silence, or you could play a 2-mana blue counter spell if you're in blue-white. I know it's supposed to hit 2 rolls here, but I don't think it really does. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't play this. I know it's $7 and on the surface it looks good, but I feel like Memory Lapse and Silence are just better options. Or just playing a permanent that says your opponents can't cast non-creature spells on your turn. Because of the win more card, let's be real here. You're playing this to prevent someone to counter your stuff on your turn. 9 times out of 10.
Well, yeah, that's my problem with it. I think my problem with it, and why I think this card is actually probably not healthy for Magic, is because I think Magic is at its best when there's interplay between the players on the table, and we have a situation where maybe I'm trying to do something crazy cool, and you're trying to stop me. And in this case, if I can resolve this, now it prevents you and any other opponent at the table from taking actions to stop me from popping off and doing whatever ridiculousness I was planning on doing, because you have no further interaction you could take because of the silence effect that's stapled to this card. So I think the card is very powerful because it does do exactly that. It makes it so that I have now got it in the clear to go and do whatever disgusting shenanigans I want to go and do, and leaves my opponent sitting there saying, well, that sucks because I can't really do anything about that. And
can I jump in too real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this makes the stack more complicated. So there's going to be players in situations where they play this spell, we go around the table, and then you cast a counter spell to counter that spell that they played, and they think that you can't play it. So this will also create a rules question for many people when they're playing the game. That's the other problem with it, is like the vagueness of the clause. Like, yes, it says, counter this target non-creature spell. But then the second sentence says, this other thing. People forget you have to resolve the first sentence before you can resolve the second sentence. You know,
Right.
it's like English class, right? Where you have a clause and a phrase. You have to finish one phrase and idea before you can move to the next. So, um, yeah, sorry, I
Oh,
didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just
I,
this just is another sort of caveat I have with this card. Like,
No, absolutely, and you're absolutely right. Like, and people are gonna, but what it's going to force people to do is going to force people to burn their interaction to counter this. Like, this is like before you pop off, you're going to be able to protect it with this sort of spell, and now the fight becomes over this instead of your scary threat or your imminent whatever, and that it just it and then it just creates the situation where the interaction doesn't exist anymore to actually interact meaningfully in the game. And I don't like the card. I recognize it as I think it's very powerful. And the fact that it's appears in almost 3,500 decks since November
sure.
is people are very clearly figuring out that this card is kind of nutty putty. I don't like it, but
Real quick,
I have to go and call it great. I don't think there's any other way I can look at this card and say, well, that's not a card that's not great. That card is potentially very, very powerful to make sure that I'm still in the game, or my combo goes off, or whatever, by just making it really difficult for my opponents to interact with me in a meaningful way. So
my
I hate it,
problem.
because I think it engenders the wrong sort of positive play, but it's great, and I'm like, I would be very leery of this card going forward.
Well, yeah, it reminds me of Split Second too, right? Because
Yes.
the rules interaction with Split Second is difficult as well. Because if you cast Split Second as a card, then you have to understand, okay, what am I able to do right now to respond to this
Mm-hmm.
situation?
And
Because
same
you
thing
know,
with morph too, like morph
more
similar in the
more
same vein,
more,
right?
and then not to go spoiler, but the new mechanic, I'm not going to say it because it hasn't been coming out yet, but that new mechanic that is like morph also shows this particular nuance. So not to get off the rails, but yeah, I think overall, this is going to be a card that we're going to debate for several years until we figure out what to do with it. What I have
Yeah,
for you is an old card, because again, I'm the old man of the group when it comes to selection.
that's true.
So this card, all right. So I'm building this life gain deck, but I wanted to do it in a chunk format, which means I'm not going for pinging. I'm not doing like gain 1 life for each creature ETBing or dying. I want to gain like 5 life in a chunk. So I looked at this it's called Words of Worship. Okay, it's a 3-mana enchantment. It says pay 1 colorless, colon. So it's an activated ability. The next time you would draw a card this turn, you gain 5 life instead. Bruce, what do you think about this crap?
So, so, so just to be clear, you can activate this before your draw step,
Yes, you
so that
can.
you automatically
In
gain
your
life.
upkeep.
So, okay, again, this is a sort of card that, I mean, like, part of me wants to say this is awesome, because like, if you're playing a dedicated life gain deck, this can, and you know, the most pertinent example we've had recently, although there's lots of decks that do this, is the Frodo and Sam food style decks, where Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit, rewards you for gaining a big chunk of life all at once. So this would be an easy way to trigger that. I would question the validity to it of putting a 3-mana do nothing enchantment that sits there and on the battlefield. And if you can't activate this to draw more, to draw a bunch of cards, then you're sinking mana into this card that's sitting on the battlefield not doing much. If you're able to activate this 2 or 3 times in a turn and gain a big old chunk of life and get your commanders up and purring, like, I think this card could be really quite interesting. I don't love this sort of effect, though. I would rather put something a little more proactive in my deck. I mean, I know it synergizes really well with your commander, but I think on the whole, it's sort of the card slot where if you might find that you top deck this in the later stages of the game, you're going to be sadly disappointed, because you may not have the resources to draw more cards to trigger this to stabilize your life total, and you're just going to be drawing a dead card. So I'm not like, I can see its applications. I can see why people get why you'd be excited for this, particularly with Frodo being a that the ring temp mechanic on that Frodo being super interesting. I would think I would rather go elsewhere to find my life gain, personally. I think.
So the only reason that you play any of these, there's a whole cycle of them, right? The Words of Waste, which is the most applicable one for black, make people discard cards instead of you drawing. Words of Wilding, which we talked about how many months ago in one of our episodes. I wish I could remember the one where it makes 2/2 bears. One shoulder just came out, actually. That's why we discussed it. The only reason you're playing a card is to abuse it, right? In Commander?
No, it's true.
So there's there's cards that say whenever you gain life, draw a card, blah blah blah. So I think hitting that threshold is my point. Like, I want to hit that 3 life or more threshold. There's a ton of enablers that say if you gained 4 or more life this turn, make a 4/4 angel with flying or whatever. So I'm gonna abuse this card. Most people will not. So that's all I have to say about that.
No, that's fair. I think the card is super interesting. One of the things that I keep coming back to, Pete, and I find when I'm playing, is that as I get deeper into the game, and these sorts of synergy pieces that I get in I draw, they're probably not answering the problem I have on the table. That's where I keep getting stuck, and I'm looking for something. And I want something that's going to help me to solve the problem that I have on the table. And this isn't it. This ain't it. And so I'm going to say, well, because the jam then becomes like, do I want to play the 3/0 do nothing, 3 mana do nothing enchantment, or do I want to try and put a blocker down or do something that's going to impact the board in a more meaningful way? And I find more often than not, I want to put something else on the table instead of this sort of enchantment. Sure, if you can get up and find space, like find an opening on the table to resolve this, like if it like maybe you're opening a hand right away or whatever, sure, it's great. But I think, and I think it's going to be reflected in the next conversation.
Bet, Bruce. I'll just kill you with this card next time we play together, and then you'll be like, "Wow, all right." So,
all right, I'm down. You kill me with it, and I'm going to make Frodo. I'm going to make you eat Frodo, my friend.
That's Hobbicide, okay? What are you doing? All right, so this topic actually builds on our last week's episode. So we were talking about threat assessment, and my big thing that was jumping out was politicking. All right, it's a huge part of Commander. Most people that I know do it in some facet when they argue about a potential threat, or in the case of like trying to protect their own babies and their own pieces. So, based on what I do for a living, which I can't really disclose, but I do interviewing and I do other things regarding sensitive information. But basically, we were talking about the last week or so how to confront people with information. So, what I mean by this is like you have information in your hand, you have information on the table, and then you have information that people will give you based on, and I say that in quotes, give you because it's how people react to situations. So it's social awareness, and it's looking at how do I like leverage a situation. So because it's 4 people at the table, so it's like Risk, or it's like some of these strategy games where you have multiple outcomes where you have to figure out. Even D&D, it's more of a simple way of looking at it, where people are they're either chaotic good or they're neutral or whatever. They have different loyalties in that sense. So what I'm trying to say is like social politics is a huge part of this game. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. I don't want to go off the rails too much yet, Bruce. But how do you? Yeah, no, I'm just saying, how do you look at this? Because I know we're at very opposite ends of how we look at this concept.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a teacher, right? And so as a teacher, I teach elementary school. And I know that my students, when I interacting with them, so Pete's influenced by his place of employment, where he's looking to read people's cues and whatnot. I'm a teacher, and I have to be very clear and transparent with my students, and that leans into my own personal sense of what I think it means to approach playing other people with integrity. And so politicking for me is very difficult. I struggle with it mightily because of the fact that My own sense of integrity makes it really difficult to misrepresent something or to obfuscate my information or to deflect from me, despite the fact that these are all attributes of politicking at a commander pod that are going to ultimately help people gain equity in the game. So I'm my own view of politicking is probably much reduced compared to other players because I have a sort of a peculiar sort of sense of integrity that I have a hard time taking certain lines of action because I feel like it's being dishonest. So when I talk politics, I'm far more reticent.
Give me just a simple example, because that'll be easier to understand than like say I want to blow up your smothering tithe with my Croissant grip, and I say to the table, I have an answer to Bruce's smothering tithe. What would you do in that situation?
So all I would do is probably I'd ask you, like, are you sure that's the best target that you're going to want to that you want to destroy at this moment? Because I would look around and like maybe Dave's got a powerful an artifact or something that you needs to be removed. Maybe Mason has something else that needs to be removed. And I'd say, are you sure that's the best target? I would be unlikely to go and point to whatever they've got, but I would say, are you sure that this is what the line of play you want to take right now? Because I recognize that I have a very powerful enchantment on the battlefield that would make it a grade target for a Croson grip. I don't feel like it's my place to go around and say, well, look what Dave has on his table. Dave's got his Alibu active, and Dave's going to start being able to activate that. And Mason has, some other powerful piece of equipment or something on the battlefield. I would probably ask the question, but I wouldn't direct you to your eyes any one place. I would trust that you have enough ability to assess the full board state, and for whatever reason, you and I have come to the conclusion that differently, that this is a threat to you, and I have to respect. And as a player, I respect that choice. Sure. But I may not agree, and I have a really hard time bringing myself to saying, yeah, but if you let him resolve that or stick that thing there, we're all going to eat 1 million damage next turn. And
it's not really your because I mean, I think like we said, with how we view the game, you view it as you're playing the game, right? You draw your card, you're on your upkeep, you untap your permanents, you play something, you attack, you go to your second main, you pass. Where I'm like, okay, there's that part of the game, and then there's this level of it. There's like this onion layer underneath it. There's like the egg bake, and you got like the mushrooms and the veggies inside of the egg bake with the cheese, right? You got those layers. So anyway, so you got those layers. And there's an underneath layer. It's like, it said a ton of salt in it. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? So like, I'm looking at it like in a different vein. I'm still playing the game, but I'll look at someone's decision and I'm like, okay, why did they make this decision? Okay, they don't have any card draw, so they're playing this very scary bomb. It doesn't happen all the time because there are times where I'm literally just checked out and I'm not actually playing the game. I'm just participating. I don't actually. I'm not even thinking. So like that's when I pull out like the Xenagos deck or like the Akiri deck, because it's like me hit you in face with stick. Or like, you know what I mean? So you have to think about it. But there's more nuanced situations where there's decks that are slower or they require more moving parts and you have to resolve certain pieces. That's where I start playing the player, right? It's like, okay, what colors are they playing? Whatever. Just to keep it within a blanket here, because this is such a situational thing for me. It doesn't happen every time, and it's not like I can tell you this is the steps you can take to be better at politicking. I think it comes down to life experience, how long you've played this game, and basically how do you view like decision making? Like how competitive are you as well? Because some people, they just don't want to do this because they're not competitive, right? So I think the concern here is just being aware of what are people's motives during this game, right? What is your motivation, right? Like what?
Right.
Like I always ask my friends, why did you kill my thing when you could have killed that other person thing, right? Like later in the game when we're all screwed,
Right. Okay.
when we're all about to
Yeah.
die, I'll rib him a little bit. Or like Alex and I used to do that, go back and forth. We're like, why are you hitting me for 25 damage? Oh, because I can. Okay, so you're just gonna be a psycho today, and like you don't care about winning the
Right.
game. You
Yeah.
just want to take me down with you. So, but I think to keep it in a framework, it's like what game actions are we willing to take beyond what impacts just us, but what impacts everybody else. So
Right. Okay.
so what other difficulties? I mean, in terms of difficulties, when me and you played together, for example, I know that you'll tune me out a lot of the times, which is a good thing, honestly,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm trying to manipulate the situation because I know you very well.
So yeah, I try diligently to not allow myself to be manipulated. So if I'm not prepared to manipulate other people, I find it very difficult to. I also think I'm difficult to manipulate. I'm easy to predict though, and I recognize that as a flaw because my and I guess it's because it's sort of a form of rigid framework that I adopt.
Sure, you have your
I'm
routine.
easy.
You have your routine of the game, right?
Yeah, I'm fairly easily predictable, but I would say I'm not easily manipulated.
Hmm.
So if you can talk, if you want to make a deal with me, it needs to make sense. You can't just try and broker a deal and say, or Bruce, hey, can you deal with that thing there? I might like quite honestly say that doesn't scare me, and you might like there's no manipulation to that conversation because I will just straight out say I don't think that's scary or that doesn't I'm not interested in
Sure.
that doesn't impact me,
So
right?
Bruce, give me a
Whereas
situation. Give me a situation, and I'll tell you how I would handle it.
so I'm trying to think of an in-game situation. So so just a week ago, you and I we're playing with another player. We use Fuji's name? Yes, we use Fuji's name.
Yeah, yeah. Fuji's
Fuji,
gonna probably come on the show eventually too. So
yeah, Fuji and Pete and I were playing, and he had resolved a pack rat. And
mhm.
a pack rats can be scary because they can get out of control. Next thing you know, you're swimming in rats. And my understanding of how you were seemed to be more interested in the pack rat than I was. I was uninterested in said pack rat. And so if that were a situation on the table where you're like, hey Bruce, do you have an answer for the pack rat? I was literally looked at you and said, I'm not interested. That doesn't scare me. I'm not worried about pack rat. If pack rat gets to the point where pack rat is a problem,
Then you'll
then
worry about
things
it now.
other things have
Mhm.
gone wrong here than
Mhm.
than worrying about a pack rat because a
Sure.
pack rat is a reasonably slow way for a deck to accrue a lot of value. So I wasn't worried about pack rat, although you seem to be demonstrate some measure of preoccupation with it because even later in the game you removed a copy of pack rat.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an example of like where like I would look at it and like you if because I really thought you were fishing for a way to get me to try and also say, well, pack rat's a problem. Let me dedicate my resources to trying removing pack rat. I didn't care. I like pack rat can sit there on the table. If Fuji wants to discard cards and make rats by discarding cards, I'm gonna like you have fun because I can't tell you the last time I lost to a pack rat in a game of Magic,
That's
and it
very
was
fair.
so anyway. So that's just an
So,
example where
mm,
you looked to me like you were trying to fish for a way to manipulate me and I wasn't interested. I'm like
sure.
I'm not down. I don't care if pack rat's on the table. Fuji can go and dedicate whatever he wants to pack rat right now.
Yeah. So like, okay, this is how I look at it. Don't judge me, okay? This is just how my brain
Okay.
works. I wanted to play dumb into a scenario where I could accrue value and win the game. And at that point, honestly, I probably could have. I just misplayed really badly in the game, so it's fine. Whatever. I'll just off myself like later. I'll ask myself later, uh, why? But why? No, no, no. So I thought pack rat was a problem in that situation because it's easy to duplicate it in that particular style of deck. It's easy to recur it, so he could sacrifice it to whatever he was doing, bring it back because Tauntauns cares about it. I also thought that like maybe you could take care of it, so I don't have to focus on it, so I could just nuke his whole board and like just like wreck for both of
Right.
you at the same time. So like my idea was like, okay, I'm gonna see if Bruce wants to take care of this, even though it's not really a problem, because maybe Bruce will feel bad for me or something, and he'll whatever. So
Yeah. So that's one of those is I'm aware that pack rat can be a powerful tool, but yeah, no, I was like I'm not. I mean, until pack rat is showing that he can beat me, like Fuji can beat me with a pack rat, I'm not going to dedicate a lot of resources to trying to kill a lot of pack rats.
I guess the other thing is like because I was playing a deck where I don't have a ton of big bodies. Eventually,
Right.
the pack rat was probably going to just kill me anyway because I mean, Shalab's a 3/3, and like the biggest creature I have is like I think it's like a 4/4 flyer or something. Like, I don't even know, man. Like I couldn't tell
And
you.
Sheila doesn't even have death touch, which is the most
It doesn't have
concerning
death
thing ever.
touch. It doesn't have
Doesn't have
reach.
reach.
It's literally the most useless spider in the game. So anyway, so anyway, looking at this as a takeaway in general, like politics can be good for different types of pods, different atmospheres. I have friends who don't care about any of that, and they'll just attack until someone dies, if it's them or if it's somebody else. People will make these like if you can learn how to read people in general, you can learn like when's the right time to resolve a spell. It doesn't work all the time, but like there are instances where I literally will hold that card that I think can help me like create a bunch of value. Like Academy Manufacturer is one of the last cards I play in the Rutstein deck for obvious reasons because not only does it combo with like a kitchen sink, but it's easy to play and like if I get into a jam, that and Rutstein they create enough value by themselves that I don't necessarily need to play it on turn 3. There are other situations where like just recognizing what people play to recognize okay like when's the appropriate time for me to hold my cards, when's the appropriate time to just start playing everything, because I feel like we talked about this before. If you start playing a bunch of things, people get scared even if you're not actually doing anything. Like if you ramp like Xenagos, if I play Xenagos on turn 3, you're like, this dude's a problem. But it's like, what if all my cards in my hand are 7 mana? Like literally, I'm just doing it because I can, and it's not necessarily because I should.
Well, I mean, one thing about why Xenagos isn't such a terrible thing to run out on turn 3 or turn 4 early in the game is because it's an indestructible god. Like it's going to sit there on the table and be hard for your opponents to interact with.
Just to bounce off of it, but in that case, like the social awareness of it is like most people see the indestructible god and they're like, oh crap, this dude's just going to start slapping me really fast, tons of damage, doubles the power and toughness, gives them haste. This is terrible. I need to deal with this immediately. I need to kill all of their ramp pieces. I need to just wreck them. Other players are like, I don't care because I have a bounce effect in my hand. Who cares? You know what I mean? Or like, whatever. So like, if people start blowing up your stuff, it actually gives you more information about what they have, what they don't have, right? Or how their deck runs as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like looking at it that way, like how you can leverage these sorts of interactions can help you survive in the game where like you probably shouldn't even be still alive in the first place. It's happened to me several times where like I'm at like 1 life and people kept me alive, and the only reason they kept me alive is because they looked at me. They're like, okay, this guy might help me with this other person, right? And then when they finally figure out a way to handle that person, they handled me, right? Because they could.
Right.
So
that's a very dangerous game to play because a number of times I have seen people get left on the table, and then they're the ones that squeak the win out because
yeah, case in point.
Yeah, so so that's a very dangerous ploy. I've used it before when like I'm like usually when I'm not the dominant force of the table and someone else is clearly arch enemy, and I have the choice to remove a player because their shields are down or whatever. They've just been crushed for a bunch, and now it's time to deliver the killing stroke. Or maybe I leave them at the table. I would often choose to keep them at the table because that means that maybe next time the guy who is arch enemy's got to knock them out instead of knocking me out. So anyway, it's just like put another meat shield in front of me, so to speak. But so I mean again, to me that I don't view that as so much as being manipulated. I'm not going to go and turn to the arch enemy and say, well, I left him at the table so you can knock him out, right? Like it's a strategic choice that is totally within the purview of my sense of integrity. Like I'm going to leave a player at the table here rather than knock them out here and see if
So
arch enemy see
I
if
would
he
totally
kills
take
the
him
bait.
out. I would totally take him out. Like because
Yeah,
I think what we're getting here to come full circle with politicking is like you can't trust anybody. At the end of the day, I have friends who've done that to me. I'm like, why'd you kill me? And they're like when I was younger and like and I was getting into the game. I was like, why'd you kill me? I just want to play the game, whatever. It's like because I can't just leave you there like, because you might be able to kill me. So like I don't take it personally if I'm removed early in a game anymore, right? Because
right.
it's respect. I literally told one of my buddies that he was getting really upset at us because he kept killing him quickly, and I'm like, dude, it's because your deck is working. It's because your deck is actually doing what it's supposed to do. That's why we're killing you so fast. And so like
No, it's true.
I understand if like someone hasn't really got to do any game actions, like maybe their deck just struggled with mana, like Dave the one time where he only had like 3 lands for 10 turns or whatever it was.
That hurts.
That really hurts. And of course, you're not gonna pick on that guy, but I've noticed like sometimes you just have to just do what you got to do, right? You just got to wash your hands of it and be like, okay, we'll play up, shuffle up, play another game. I usually offer that to people, like if the game's going long, you guys. I mean, if you want, we can just we can just all scoop at the same time. Yeah,
It's just
like,
me toops.
yeah, like we could just shuffle play again, like because when I was playing Rutscene, I was taking like 25 game actions, right? And like nobody could stop me. I had so much value on the board. I had ways to protect all my creatures. I had a soft lock with Crucible of Worlds. Like it's just like there's just a lot going on. And I had a heroic intervention in my hand. I could get Tireless Witness back to get that back. Like it was just a mess. I had like 25 permanents on the board. It was crazy. So I told them, I said, listen, we can just stop right here. I mean, Bruce wanted to play it out because he has the integrity, right? Like that's the other integrity piece is like you want to finish what you start. Me, it's like, okay, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care. Like, if I'm out of the game, I'll kill myself with a browbeat 9 times out of 10. Like, you know what I mean? I'll do that stupid play where, it kind of screws somebody and then someone else can pull away because, unfortunately, that's sociologically how I was raised. So it's not your fault. It's just more so how I grew up and what I do now for a living. So,
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that as long as it's not made a spite, right? Like if you want to do something silly that ends your game, that's fine. But it's something that where you do it as out of a spite play to deny somebody something. Let's say they could have connected with you and gained a whole bunch of life. To me, that's not in keeping with like my own sense of integrity would go. That's not down, Bruce. Take your lumps. Like take the L like an adult here, and accept the fact that you just got thumped.
My last point on social politics is like that particular situation where someone's getting very salty, someone's getting very upset, and like you can read them now, right? Like you can use their emotions against them, not necessarily to upset them more, but like if you're playing another game with them, you can push them a bit so they misplay. They misplay because they're emotional, or like you can push them in a different sense where like you can egg them on so they attack someone else for you because of some sort of situation. That's an easy way to look at it.
I've seen that too. And I've been guilty of it, and it's not a good look. So I definitely recall one evening where I was playing with some friends, and game one did not go for me the way I thought I should. And one of my friends took great glee in derailing me. And the subsequent game, I was not making good game choices. I was salty and I was spite playing to screw the other player out of the game too. So in the end, the two of us pretty much dragged each other to the bottom of the heap and got stomped on by the other two players of the pod because I was bound and determined to, make up for the fact that last game he, did what I felt did me wrong, did me dirty. Sure. And now I wasn't able to leave the game behind and from like a game ago behind and accept this new one as a new environment.
Yeah.
And was making poor game choices, and it really cost me. And I thought back after the game, I'm like, wow, was I obtuse? Was that a stupid way to play the game? And I didn't enjoy it because I didn't.
That's just not how you operate.
Have it. Yeah. Like I didn't have a chance to do what I wanted to do. I was making poor game choices and really not using my cards in a way that they should have been like put in the deck to do.
Yeah, so you're trying to separate yourself ideally from the deck, from the cards, I
Yeah.
guess. Or yeah, and like I do that too, but I'm separating myself even further from like I guess winning the game versus impacting the game. But we can get into that another time. I guess for a quick recap, just because this is more of a nuanced conversation, social politics. They are basically those interactions you have with people at your pod where you're trying to convince them to do something or convince them to not do something to your permanence or theirs or to someone else's permanence or in that sense. So, removing things, bouncing things, whatever, also preventing them from killing you in some sense, or you may be deflecting your uh, game actions away from attention so you can find a way to win the game. Social awareness for us in terms of Commander is looking at what are players trying to do, what are their motivations for this game, how are they playing this deck, and how are they interacting with other players, because that's another tell. Sort of like poker, where you sort of figure out how people, what they're holding in their hand based on what their facial expressions are like, their reactions when they draw cards. Because people slip up all the time. I do this all the time. I'm like, I draw this one card off the top, I'm top decking, and I'm like, I sigh or something. So
Yeah.
that's the other good. The other thing is like reading those sort of nuances, and then finally, how can we use this overall to have a more enjoyable play experience with friends and people we don't know? Let's recognize these sort of things. They're very nuanced. Some people are just like they're just crazy. They don't even care about this sort of thing. Some people are in the middle, like Bruce, where they have an integrity and they have a morality compass. And some of them are like me, where I'm not trying to manipulate every single situation, but I definitely should not be left alive, if possible, when we play Magic together.
He's our dirtbag. Pete's our dirtbag.
So, real quick, to end the show, I had a really good experience today. My girlfriend and I went to this really nice Filipino restaurant up towards Wheaton, Maryland. So, there is this shop up there that has one of the largest collections of Magic the Gathering cards and other video games and assortments in the Eastern Seaboard. They're called Dice City Games. Check them out if you get the chance. Not sure if they ship internationally, but they definitely are part of Star City sponsorships, and they go to a lot of those events. So they are pretty well known in the community. And my boy Danny who hooked me up today. I emailed him a list yesterday night at 8 p.m. He got me that list around 1 p.m. today. So that was pretty excellent because
that's pretty good service.
They have very good service. And they really do care, I think. I haven't got the chance to play there much because it's just too much out of the way for me. It's about a half-hour drive because of the traffic. But people love that store. I've heard a lot of good things about their service. They have a ton of reserve list original printings of cards, like Swords of Plowshares, Alpha. Like, they've got a lot of very valuable stuff, too. So if you're looking for cheap cards, they have a massive assortment. I bought a bunch of $1.50, $2, $5 American cards today, and they had almost every single one.
For those of you in Canada, that'd be almost $25 a card because the exchange rate is so rotten. So anyway,
so like, I'm not sure if they ship to Canada, but they definitely have a robust quality when it comes to their service. So I figured we shout them out quickly. And my friend Danny, now thank you for your help, and I hope that you enjoy the show. If you're able to listen, he was interested in us, so hopefully we have a chance to grow our small grassroots operation here. So anyway, everybody, have a great week. Have a good rest of your time in this snow, because obviously it's been a rough winter for both of us. And Bruce, any parting words, any parting shots for us?
No, just I was just gonna say, like, I really like the testimonial, but that thing was a great inclusion because I think it's, again, my own code of integrity. If we haven't tried the service out, we're not going to advocate for it. So,
sure.
But yeah, obviously, folks, if you have other testimonials of great stores that we need to hear about, share them with us on all our social medias. Check in the show notes. We'd love to hear from about other great stores that are out there in this great wide world. And yeah, stay warm, everybody. It's awfully cold up here in Canada. So bundle up, everybody. Be good and enjoy playing Magic whenever you get to do so next.
Take care, everybody. Thanks again. And we'll see you next week. Have a good day.
Bye.